ask about bushing removal and installation. And this is one of the main tools that I use for removing bushings. Kind of a wedge. Sometimes it also actually cuts the bushings out, but it's basically just a old screwdriver that kind of like this, you know, just a plain Jane screwdriver. Just knock the handle off. This one I did leave the handle on, but you can see on the tip I've kind of cut a notch on this one. I don't know how easy it is to see, but the main one I'll use this one for seals and stuff like that, but the main one to take the bushings out, it's just that piece of metal, that rod. I do prefer that it's squared because it'll allow it to where you're not damaging the bore you're going into. It won't hurt it. And what you end up doing is you just cut the head completely off. Like this one would have been like this. And I just cut it off here on a grinder and then cut a notch in it. You can see it there, and sometimes you'll have to just resharpen this little edge to get it to where it really cuts good on the bushing. Let me grab one and see if I can show you. Like, here's one. Here's a typical Sun Gear 4L60E. It's got like a babbit bushing in this one, not even a bronze one. But I have to turn this. I'll generally try and find the puzzle cut in it, and I'll try to go down, but I'll take the cut edge of it and put it down against the flat side of it there. So there's the chiseled edge to it, down against the body of it like that, down into the bushing. You will have to angle it a little bit. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see. It's probably going to shake the ever-living crap out of the camera. I have to do it a little further right here. And I just hold it a little bit of an angle. It's starting. You can see how it's starting to cut the bushing and not hurting the surface of the Sun Gear itself. We just finished getting it down in through here. I gotta take it over to the edge so it's a little stronger over here on the table. And then there, it did knock it out, but it did cut it too, almost the whole way, but it caused the puzzle, see, to break apart. But if I would have kept going, it would have just kept cutting it. But that'll be an indicator where it stops cutting as efficiently, just to put this on the grinder again and sharpen it. Let's see, the other thing is like the bushing drivers. Let me go grab a pump. This one's getting ready to be sent out to be machined, but you get the seal out of here too. I don't have a good spot to leverage against the seal. I'm just getting the seal out, and I'll just take my regular screwdriver, come in a little angle and up against the edge of my table. And see, this is being a little bit of a bitch. And come up under it like that, and there it's out. Now on the bushing, on the 4L60Es, where a lot of people mess up, they'll push it out this direction. And actually there's a lip inside of here that actually kind of helps stop the bushing from going further this direction. But once you drive it out this way, it'll flatten that little lip out. So you always want to drive them down. And again, you could use like my tool or just a regular screwdriver or a punch or something, but you do run the risk of damaging that surface there a little bit. So you want to use an actual driver. I think I run the press. Yeah, it's actually, excuse me, that's a number 11. 12's too big. That's an 11. Oh, where's my 10? I could have swore it was a 10. No, 10's for the case. Yeah, that's too loose. So it is the 11. It's hard to see. Mine is an old bushing driver set that I've had since the 80s. I'll just take it and drive it out. This is a split, and this is the split type. But if you look, I'm going to try and show you. It's really kind of hard to see on camera. It's hard for me to see. It's just probably even harder for you on camera. See if I can get close to it. But if you look, there's a little lip right there. And that's where that stopping point is for the bushing. You can drive it past there, and once you do, it'll flatten that little lip out. And once that happens, it will make it easier for the bushing to walk in and out of the bore here. But I always Loctite these in, and I'll stake them in too on this side. You can, when you're installing the bushing, you can use a driver like this, but you generally don't want to start with the same exact size. You want to start with something that's a little bigger to get it kind of flush, and you always want to true up the bushings too. Like example, I'll just put this one back in. So I'm going to take the bigger driver, turn it over, and just gently start getting it to go down. And then it'll stop flush with the driver. Like there, you could hear it a lot louder. And now I have to countersink it, but you don't want to go too far because you don't want to go past that lip. See, we're getting to that lip, not very far. You don't want to go past it. I usually will press them in though. I don't usually use the driver to install them. It's almost just a little bit more. You do have to get it down in this particular bushing. It has to be below this recess enough for the little snowflake washer to sit and not touch it. Right about there. And then always you want to true them up too. A lot of people don't do this, but you should. A little piece of junk. You always want to true up the bushing after you do it to its mating surface. This one's pretty good, so it spins nice and free, but I'll take my dead blow rubber mallet after the bushing's in, and I'll put it over the corresponding piece and just spin the part and hit the part, and it helps true the bushing up. But yeah, let me show you the little snowflake piece. Keyed and indexed. It'll only go like, here's the, make sure, right, so you've got the different slots in the rotor, and then you have the different tabs on the guide basically, and it'll only go like one way. Like there's two line up, so you look for the two, like there, those two look like it's going to go, but it's not down here, so you know it's the other two that are going to go. Let's see if, like right there, so now we know it's down all the way. This is correct. You'd use Trans-Gel or something to hold this in place because you got to flip it over. But the important part with the bushing is this back surface cannot rub against the bushing. So it has that little offset. So when you set it down in there, you can see that little gap. That's really hard to see. But there is a gap between that lip and where the bushing is, if you look. God, that's really hard to see. I don't know if I can zoom in. Let me try. Let me, hang on. Let's see. Well, if I hold it, that might pick it up a little bit better with the light. I just have to keep weight on it to hold it. But it's a really tight tolerance. But it just can't rub it, you know, because it's going to be in here rotating. So when people push it in too far and they don't drive it in far enough, this plastic will start grinding on that bushing and just tear this up, gets clogged, and then the pump explodes. Kind of same thing with the seals. People always use the metal seal retainers, like this little component here. I don't ever reinstall these. You know, it's a compression type fit where it's a clamps, and the little feet here will lock on the back of the pump, so it's to prevent the seal from blowing out. But all I do, and I do not have seal failures any longer, been doing it for many years, take some JB Quick and just put a nice little fine bead of JB Quick around this edge, wipe off the excess, and just drive it in with your hammer, or, you know, installer tool. The only problem with the tools is what'll happen with the tools, like one of these, I don't use them anymore, but what will happen is because when you're using the installer tool, you know, that's the outside of the seal, that's what's going to go down in the pump. If you look, it does a good job at supporting the metal ring, the spiral ring right there, the spring, to keep tension on the seal area. Now when you're using these, or if you're not, but it happens more often when you're using one of these, is when you put it in here and you start hitting it with the hammer real hard, the final blow, when it contacts this surface, this lip, what'll happen is this ring, you'll actually pop this whole ring off, and it'll be in here just sitting like that. And you know, unless you're really knowing what you're looking for, you might just miss it. A lot of people do. But the way to prevent it is you would want to take a bunch of whatever type of you know, assembly grease you're using, and pack it into this groove in here to where it's like totally packed full of grease. So that way the spring can't come out really, no matter if you're using a seal installer or if you're just, you know, installing it by hand like you normally would with a hammer and just tap, tap, tap. But JB Quick around this outside seal surface, you will not have to use this. Garbage. Any seal, front, rear, don't matter. Little JB Quick and the seal is gonna stay. And that's kind of it. I could do another bushing to show you. Let me find another old part. Oh, we got it. There we go. You guys probably most of these, I do. Late model, later model, I should say, like an 04 and up. Yeah. Again, I try and find the little puzzle connector piece in the bushing. Sometimes you can see them, and sometimes you can't. And I do not see it. So again, my little chisel part, I'm going to put on the flat edge. I'll just move it over to the edge of my table here. It's a little more sturdy. And you have to start off a little bit at an angle. You can't just always come in straight, because you got to get that cut lip behind it just a little bit at first to kind of get a good bite on it. And then once it's got it, it's almost started. There and there. Now it's starting to put. Now it's just starting to push it out the other angle. See, and then I mean, it's so disformed. I can just take my screwdriver and come in and just pry it out. And the puzzle piece is on the other side. But, you know, so you get the bushing out, and if you look, I didn't damage that surface at all, hitting as hard as I did. I mean, it needs cleaned up just because of the rust and things like that, you know, but you would be able to take another bushing and put it in there and not have a deformity in here that will cause this bushing to not fit right. When you're using something that's a squared piece like that, it's not round, so it doesn't conform to it, so it stays off the body. It doesn't really connect to it, really. And the same thing here. I mean, you just try and find the puzzle, maybe if you're lucky. It looks like it's right there, but again, it's really hard to tell on a lot of these. And I'll just come in a little bit of an angle, make sure I'm not on the actual metal. And I started to move it a little bit, which is good. I'm not cutting it yet. Looks like it's deformed, and I might be able to get it out. Might have to hit a little more. Yeah, not enough. Whoop. Coming out. Yeah. And I'll move over just a little bit on it, because it's deformed it so much. Now, like, my chisel piece is in an angle now to stay straight. I can't come in like that. There, popped it out. But it just depends. See, I need to sharpen this because it's so dull right here on this edge. But it still works fabulous for getting bushings out. Alright, battery died. But I was grabbing this other piece to show you on this type of a bushing where it's easy to get to. I did sharpen my piece. I don't know if the video cut off because it hasn't been cutting, and I was going to try and show you how if it cuts, which it should in most instances. See if we can come in here. Well, this is an awfully thick one. Well, that one will knock out too. I'll start on the inside. Looks like somebody already replaced this one and kind of hit it there with something. I'll just come in, like I said, at a little bit of an angle. You just got to get it started behind the bushing, and then you can stand your piece up to get a little bit better of an angle on it there. Yeah, it's just pushing it still. Yeah, so I mean, it's just the way it's made. It's not strong enough to support it while I'm hitting it, so it won't cut it. So it just pried it apart. Again, the bore, I didn't damage the bore in any way inside of here. It's nice and smooth all the way around it. Just needs like light, yeah, like a little piece of this, by hand ran around inside of there. Clean it up before you put the next bushing in it, just to get off any of the debris and stuff like that. It doesn't take long, like that. So where it's, nice and smooth. I mean, you can see where someone did hit it before with something. Messed it up a little bit there. And this one, since it's such a thick bushing, this one can be a little more problematic, but as long as you can come in behind it, I'm not going to really push down on this one at all. I'm just going to push it inward. This should be enough of a deformity to get it out of here. Oh yeah, I can definitely see where someone was beating on it before. You can see down in here, there's a lip they created right there when they were smashing on it. This drum's got to get sent out to get reworked anyway. I have them turned down. I mean, I can't even get in there to fix it there. My little tool. So it's like you'd have to come in with like a little half-rounded file or something. Nothing too aggressive on it. Just you got to get that edge off of it right there they put on it. It's not in the bushing boards, like they created it down here where the rings go for the pump. My file just broke. Did you see that? Piece of junk. I've had that thing for years though. I wouldn't want to call it junk, but I wasn't pushing on it that hard. I'm just trying to get that lip off of there. Again, I'm not on the bushing surface in here. What I'm grinding on is there's a lip right there that they created with the bushing when they were taking the last one out and replacing it. Because this is definitely not an OE one, it's the color of it. So it was replaced. It's really windy here today. It's cold too. It's only about 40 degrees, 30, 35, 40. It's pretty chilly. I normally don't do this till the drums come back. I mean, it leaves with no bushings in it because I have the drums turned down, not just sanded. But if the bore is a little muffed up in here, take this. This really cleans them up great. I'll use this on all the ring grooves too. You can do it by hand, but this makes short work of it and it's a little more uniform. Also take and hit it where the lip seals go. Give it a nice new surface for the seals. Again, normally I used to do this all by hand. This just makes it shorter and faster. It results in a better build too. A lot of people don't do any of this shit. They'll just take a cookie cutter and grind this up or some sandpaper on the band surface and that's it. I mean, each to their own, but you know, it is what it is, as they say. Yeah, boy, they did a number on it when they were hitting that bushing out of there. And it's definitely not from us. We went it straight this way. You can see what they did that. It should be okay. It's smoothed out. I got it filed down. But yeah, this is the problem you'll run into is that you'll do it yourself with like a flat blade or something. You'll cause that. But when you're coming, if you do come down on it like this, it's squared and this is round, so it's not gonna, like if you came in with like a, let's see, if you came in with like a well, that's too small, this is kind of too big, but if you came in with like a punch, it's round, so it's, and this is round, so it's gonna dig into that and cause that type of a problem. Or people will take like an old punch and they'll make like like this. I don't use it for bushings, but they'll use something like this. And again, since it's rounded, it's gonna dig at this surface because it's not flat. So if it gets caught, it's gonna dig into this and cause a deformity. And then when you go to put your bushing in, guess what? It doesn't fit correctly on the stator because this part of the bushing is just pushed just a tiny bit, and that's enough to where it won't fit right. And you'll be you're trying to figure out why. Yeah, see, that's not ground down, nowhere near enough. And you'll be trying to figure out why your pump's not going down, or why this drum doesn't fit on the pump. You should always test it beforehand, but you know, it's just one of them things, man. It's just from inexperienced builders working on stuff. I mean, get by with it, sure, but you know, you can cause your own problem in a sense, especially when it comes to bushings. But yeah, it cleaned up real good down around the groove for the lip seals. Nice and new surface. In where the rings go. It looks really good. No wear whatsoever. Taking that off. Yeah, but putting them in, I hardly ever put them in by hand. Always use a driver just because I like the bushings nice and true. And I still will true it up onto the corresponding piece. Like on one of these with the pump. I know I've got a stator sitting around here somewhere. Here's an old junk one. So, you know, whenever I put these two bushings in, I would get my drum and my pump, and I would line it up. And I'd take it like, you know, I'd have it sitting like this and take my rubber mallet again. And I'd, you know, the pump would be sitting here, and I'd spin this and hit this to help true those bushings up. You could leave it like this if you had just this part of the pump and then hit just right in here to help true the bushings, but see how it rocks? That's because there's no bushings in it. Seals good because the rings are sealing still, but you can take and hold it a little tight and just hit on it, because all you're really trying to do is help your new bushing you put in to true it, make sure it's centered off of the mating piece is what you want to do. On every bushing, you should do that. But you just have to be careful, obviously, using a hammer. You don't want to damage anything. Trying to think what else can I go over as far as bushings. I mean, the bushings do matter on orientation with oil grooves, things like that. I mean, doesn't matter. This is just a solid bushing. It's not going to matter. Let me see if I can get a bushing to show you. Let's see, yeah, like see here, you have that groove in there, and that's in there for a specific reason, to go a specific way. So is that one. There's the one on the back of the stator that would go here. And this one really doesn't matter which way you flip it. This one is just a flush mount and then a slight countersink for here. This one, if it's the OE style bushing, it's going to be countersunk like that. If it's the taller bushing like this, it's going to sit all the way almost out to the edge and flush. But there's a step down in there that it'll stop against. That's for the rear, it's for the front, that's for the sun gear input. There's actually two of those. It's odd. And then this one, I use the Sonex wide bushing, but this is a kind of good example. I'll see a lot of these where they're misaligned. Is you'll have that oiling hole there, and when you press it in, you want the top of this groove to be directly below that oiling hole. And the same thing with the Sonex bushing. The Sonex one is basically, well, this is the different bushing, but it's basically about that thick. So it's a much taller bushing, which is good because it rides on here. And you can see how narrow that is. See, it's just that little width there, but this is the wrong one, but when you get the Sonex bushing, it's like that wide. It would go from here to there. Actually, I thought I ordered a bunch of those. All right, so here's the factory one. Here's the Sonex one. The Sonex number is 77010-01. You can see how much wider that covers on there. So it helps keep the rear sun gear more centered in the rear planet and just overall centered off of the reaction carrier hub. So I mean, and again, see it's got that groove. So when you go to press it in, you just want to make a reference of where that oiler hole is and then just line up your top slot right there, so that way when it's pressed flush, it'll be inside of there and right directly below. So the oil can properly lubricate this. This one's actually okay, it looks pretty bad. Nah, that's too loose there. So it's got too much play this way, so that would actually be replaced. The ring gear looks okay, but the hub is not. So, but yeah, I don't know what else I can cover. I don't have the camera set up to show you when I'm pushing them in, you know, the bushings. The camera's acting really weird too. The other thing too, these solid rings, I don't like them. Not that they're hard to work with, but they just don't, they don't seem to perform as well, believe it or not, as a scarf cut or a butt cut ring. You'll get a higher, I mean, you're gonna have leakage, a little bit of leakage regardless when this is applied, you know, through here to apply your reverse input clutch pack, but you can take about 50, 60 PSI air and hit it on here with everything all assembled with a solid. I mean, it applies the clutch, it works properly. I mean, don't get me wrong, it works. I mean, it functions the way it's supposed to. But I like the scarf cuts because with the scarf cuts, you get the pressure gets behind the ring and actually will cause it to expand better to get the backward pressure behind the ring. Let's see if I take one of these off and grab one and show you. Get this crap out of the way. Yeah, this is just a it's a 700 R4, so it's the early version ring. And there's really not much of a trick with these, but if you get this, kind of make it a little tight like that, wrap it around and keep it straight up and down like that, and just roll it around and get it to seal like that.
Worst skyline down the street, the worst skyline ever.
I'm recording a video, so please be quiet. You just come walking in.
I didn't know you were on the video.
I know, but still, you come in hot bitching. All right, let's see.
You got any hits on your video?
Yeah, a bunch, dude.
Like how many?
Thousands, dude.
Did you make any money on it?
No.
Doesn't it get monetized?
No. But see, you want to keep the ring straight up and down like this. Most people will try and wrap it around, but you keep it straight and you just roll it. You get this started first, and you just roll the ring around like that. It'll stay in place. The reason these rings are better, I think, is because of the solid ring. Number one, it can't expand. But when you get the fluid pressure applying, what happens, people think, oh, it's going to bleed, it's not going to seal as good, but you'll actually, since that split's there, the fluid pressure will build behind this ring and push the ring out, which gives it a much more positive seal in the application of this clutch. You can try it. Put those scarf cuts on there with your pump assembled, hit it with the same amount of air pressure that you would with your solid rings. This drum will lift off of the pump. It'll actually lift off.